I think the biggest shock of the playoffs is obviously the Boston Celtics sweeping the Brooklyn Nets. No one would have thought that was possible. But I also give you another surprise that's really gotten to me. I think that my second biggest surprise, a close second, is the fact that we had no Game Sevens in the first round. Like I honestly thought Memphis and Minnesota would be a 7 game series, Philly and Toronto would be a 7 game series, and I thought obviously Boston and Brooklyn would be a 7 game series. So I'm actually shocked at no 7 games in a series in the first round. But back to the initial, back to the number one surprise. It's the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn Nets were expected to win the East. Obviously, this was when they had James Harden on the roster early on in the season. But even with a roster with KD and Kyrie, I know it's KD, Kyrie, and a bunch of Make-A-Wish kids. But man, with that talent, that offensive talent with KD and Kyrie, they should at least won 2 games. I mean, at least one. They didn't win any games, and so basically, as a Knicks supporter, KD should have been on that orange and blue. Should have been the orange and blue with me. We would have been a deadly team. Deadly team. But a lot of people criticize Steve Nash for his coaching. I didn't think he was that bad of a coach until these playoff series when Ike Udoka, if I'm saying it right, Ime Udoka coached circles around him. So if you're Brooklyn, you got to re-sign Kyrie. Colin Coward's talk about, don't sign Kyrie. You have to. Because the vaccine laws are out now, so he can play every game. You got to re-sign Kyrie, and then you got to dedicate this summer to building a team around them. You got two guys on the max, and you can build. You have some leeway in how you build this roster. Next year really is the final year, though, to me. It's really, shut up or not. What's it called? Put up or shut up. So we will see, but I'm honestly shocked at how Brooklyn handled their business. Everything else, I mean, we talk about the other series. Pelicans taking Phoenix to 2 games. That's a surprise to me. And with Zion coming back next year, this team should be looking at potentially, what Phoenix was. Remember when Phoenix had that little bubble run? Then the next year, I think they were like second in the West. Now they're the first. I'd expect the Pelicans to be top 3 next year with Zion to be an MVP candidate. Everybody was taking dumps on Zion, but he's back next year. Give him that long-term contract. Dallas and Utah. I think Utah's championship bubble has bursted. If I was Utah, I would consider trading either Gobert or Mitchell, or either both. I'm definitely going to trade Gobert. I think Gobert is a tremendous defensive player. He doesn't deserve a lot of the slander that he gets, but he is such a liability on the offensive end because he has no moves on the offensive end. So if you're a big man getting cooked on the perimeter, getting beat on the perimeter, whether with the 3-point shot getting blown by, you at least got to be able to have post moves and destroy your smaller matchup. And he could not do that. So honestly, what is the point of having Rudy Gobert if you're not going to be able to capitalize on a 6'7" guy on him offensively? He has no post moves. If you're a big man with no post moves, then what's your purpose on the offensive end? So if I'm Utah, I definitely got to trade one of those guys. I don't think you have to fully rebuild, fully blow it up. The reason why is because if you blow it up, if you blow up the team, blowing it up isn't as attractive as it was 10 years ago. Because the rookies nowadays are coming from the G League. And, I mean, I'm looking at the rookie class this year, Chet Holmgren. I'm not really a big believer in Chet Holmgren. You got to put some meat on his bones. Paulo Banchero, I like Paulo Banchero, but he's not a shooter. He can't really stretch the floor perimeter-wise. And I don't know. I just feel like the rookies have really taken a dip in terms of talent the last 10 years. The NBA should really consider. They should really consider teaming up and establishing a positive relationship with college basketball, where the rookies have to at least have 2 years or 3 years, and then they can play in the league. I don't think it's gonna ever happen, but this one and done rules, I think, is slowly killing this league, and because we're getting rookies, because everybody looks at the one and done rule as like this, Ben Simmons before he got his mental health issues. They look at Zion, but they don't look at the 90% of one and dones that come into the league and they came in too early and they're just in the G League or they're just sitting on the bench, rotting away, like DJ Wilson. I believe DJ Wilson from Michigan was a one and done guy. Stanley Johnson from the Lakers. He definitely should have stayed a couple years in Arizona. Guys like that. Like 90% of these one and dones should have stayed longer. Like it wouldn't hurt if Scotty Barnes stayed at Florida State for a couple of years. So we're gonna jumper. Maybe Jalen Suggs works. Develop more into. Develop more of into his shooting. These guys coming out too early, and it's hurting the league. It's hurting the quality of play. It's hurting these rosters. Golden State, Denver. Denver has nobody. Jokic is playing with Campazzo. And is Bobo active? I don't even think Bobo's active. Someone in the comments can correct me, but Jokic literally got nobody. So he has to wait till Murray comes back and MPJ comes back. That team's going to be dangerous, though, Denver, when they get those guys back. If they had those guys back, I think Golden State still wins in 7, though. But, hell, I think Denver could win, too. But Denver had no shot. Just getting one game is impressive to me. Minnesota, Memphis. Minnesota's a couple years away. You could tell. Like, Minnesota's a couple years away. That's really what it boils down to. A couple years away. Memphis is hot right now. But, Memphis is an interesting case because they're the second in the West. I don't necessarily think that they've maxed out. Like, I think their window's opening. It's just opening. But to be honest with you, I do see regression. They're a team that plays every game like it's the playoffs. And I don't think that's going to last for a long period of time. They definitely need Jaren Jackson Jr. or Desmond Bane to be an all-star as well to help John Morant. But Memphis is an interesting case because we can tell Minnesota's a couple years away from really being serious. New Orleans is next year. Once they get Zion back, they're going to be, don't think a championship contender per se, but they're going to be, well, maybe they will be. Who knows? They can make the finals next year because they're missing a Zion. Memphis is one of those cases where I think they need a lot to win a championship, but I think they're a couple years away, and that's interesting because they're second in the West. So, but Memphis, they need Desmond Bane or Jaren Jackson Jr. to pop. Miami, Atlanta. Atlanta was a good story last year. Trae Young was cooking my Knicks. He was the belle of the ball, so to speak, last year. But Miami has defensive savages, and Atlanta never had a chance when they had such a poor start to the season. I was so disappointed in Atlanta this year. So disappointed. Atlanta should have been taking that step up, top 4 in the East. At least third, compete with the likes of Milwaukee and Boston. They should have been where Boston was at, in my opinion. But they struggled defensively. But I'm disappointed. I think Atlanta, to me, is one of the most, out of all the teams in the playoffs, they're the most disappointing. How did Cleveland have a better record than you? You went all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, and you were a couple games away from the finals. They should have never regressed like that. Never regress like that. They gotta. They have to maybe look into another score. They gotta be aggressive here. I mean, if I'm Atlanta, I would consider trying to be aggressive in the uh, in the off season. Maybe look at trying to bring in another star, but don't sleep on them. This is my rumor. Calling up Denver and saying, "Hey, how much would you let us get Michael Porter Jr. for?" Because they need another scorer. They need another scorer. Their second best scorer for Atlanta is like Bogdanovich. That's not enough. So, but I'm disappointed in Atlanta. Disappointed. Philly, Toronto. Toronto's another team. I was impressed by Toronto this year. Not, contrary to Atlanta, but Toronto just needs another star. They need Pascal Siakam is the perfect sidekick. Perfect sidekick. But he's not consistent enough to be a number one. That's why they were down 3-0 in the series. They did make a furious comeback because Philly was playing around a lot and James Harden's washed, but they have to look. They got to be aggressive at the start. But also, I also think that maybe Scotty Barnes is this guy. Maybe Scotty Barnes is the guy, but he's gonna take a couple years to be something. I think he's gonna a future All Star, but it's gonna take a couple years to be something. And you got Philly, right? Philly wins the series 4-2. I look at Philly, and I remember, I wasn't posting a lot on YouTube, so I kind of missed posting here. But if you were to ask me who won this trade between Philly and Brooklyn when it happened, the moment, everybody said Brooklyn because everybody was negative on James Harden. From the get-go, I always said Philadelphia won the trade because they got James Harden who can, even though he's past his prime, he's better than Seth Curry and Andre Drummond combined. So you got rid of the clutter in the locker room because Philly was dealing with a lot of clutter. It was Joel Embiid and is Ben Simmons going to show up and a bunch of role players. You got rid of that and got James Harden, who's a perfect number two. Perfect number two. Just like Siakam, perfect number two. Because he he's tremendous offensively, and when he's good, when he wants to, he's great defensively. But for Embiid needs somebody who could get a bucket on his own. And so Philly got rid of Ben Simmons, who can't score, but he's a tremendous player defensively. You're gonna miss that. Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and replace him with James Harden. You won the trade. You had the best player in the trade. But everybody said, "Oh, Brooklyn won because they got rid of James Harden, who was trash, who was washed. He is washed." And we got Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons didn't even play this year. So, like I said before, Philly won this trade. And I did have Philly, when that trade happened, I did have Philly going to the finals. I'll be honest with you. As of right now, I think it's going to be Boston and Golden State in the finals. And I think we might be looking at Boston winning number 18. It's still early. And we'll update after each round. But that's where I'm kind of going. That's where I'm leaning right now. Then I look at Milwaukee, Chicago. Pretty predictable. It's crazy, though. It's crazy. When Chris Middleton went down, Bucks played better. They played better without Chris Middleton. I don't know. I'm not saying Chris Middleton makes them worse. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is when Chris Middleton was in the lineup, Chicago was competing with him. The minute he gets hurt, Milwaukee blows him out the last 2 games. So, last 3 games, I think. So, it's just interesting going in the future. I'm not trading Chris Middleton. I'm just saying, it's just interesting. Interesting side note. And Giannis is getting better, man. Giannis, honestly, if Giannis wins this year, he's already 1-0 in Boston as I record this. If Giannis wins this year, we really might have to consider this being his league. Just like how when LeBron won his first one in Miami, we considered it was his league. I still can't give him his league because he don't sell storylines like LeBron James does, and Kawhi still exists, and KD still exists. And KD would have beat him if he had smaller feet. But I look at Milwaukee. If Milwaukee wins this year, this is Giannis's league, and we're living in it. And then obviously we go back to Boston and Brooklyn. Boston, that was the most impressive first round victory, first round performance I've seen in a very, very long time. Very long time. So I got Boston coming out the East. I really do. I think they'll come back and beat the Bucks. I think it'll be a 7-game series. I think they'll beat Philly in the next round. Don't sleep on Miami though. But I was just thinking about this the other day. In the East is ran by cultures. You got Miami, Boston, Milwaukee. Those are the three best cultures. And I'll put Toronto in there. Those are the four best organizational cultures. I mean those are the best front office setups in the East. And they're consistently making deep runs. You cannot win in the East unless you have a strong culture. In the West, you just need stars. Golden State has stars. Phoenix, they have a great culture. So they're new in the scene. But Dallas has Luka. Denver has Jokic. Utah's got great drafting and great front office usually, but it's Mitchell and Gobert. So, and obviously in Lakers a couple years ago they had AD and LeBron. Clippers have Kawhi and Paul George. If you're gonna win in the West, you need star power. Star power. You need stars. In the East, you saw with Brooklyn, they had the star power, but their organization is a mess. They're always making trades. They're always shuffling things. They're always dealing with drama. They're already exasperated with Ben Simmons, according to Bleacher Report. But if you look at the East, I just realized this yesterday. I was watching Philly and Miami, that first game, and Miami blew out Philly. The East is ran by cultures. You're not going to win the East, and you're not going to be consistent in the East if you don't have a strong culture. And that's why I look at Atlanta and why they regress so hard. They don't have a strong culture because it doesn't really seem to me like they care about winning. Because if I was Atlanta, when they started getting hot in the postseason, I would have gave Nate McMillan a contract extension. They waited until a couple weeks after the season. I could be wrong. You could correct me if I'm wrong. But they waited until after the conference finals was over a little bit, like a couple weeks. And then they're like, fine, we'll commit to you, McMillan. It's like, what? No one in the Atlanta front office is showing me they want to win. No one. Like, I don't get that vibe from them. I feel like it's just, let's just make some money with Trae Young. I don't get that energy like they want to win. Because I don't know if they do. But Philly is too chaotic. Philly, they're too numbers driven. They're blessed with Joel Embiid, but they're too numbers driven because they got Embiid shooting deep ass threes for no reason. But Chicago was a good story, and we talked about Brooklyn, and then you talk about my Knicks. The reason why the Knicks didn't make it is we're building a culture, but again, you do need some level of talent. But we do need some level of talent, but we're building the culture. Sometimes you take hiccups with the culture. Like Miami, when you're a team that's predicated on culture, you're gonna take hiccups. Like Miami got swept by Milwaukee last year. It was in one of the most ugly first round series ever. You're gonna take lumps when you don't have star power, but you're driven by culture. But I was just thinking about it the other day. Yesterday. The East. Who are the three best franchises in the East? Four best franchises in the East. I'm not talking about record-wise. I'm talking about setup, organizational setup. Miami, in no order. Miami, Milwaukee, Boston, Toronto. Toronto won a championship a couple years ago. They went all in with Kawhi, and they reaped the benefits. Miami went to the finals in that bubble. I know it's the bubble, but it still counts. Milwaukee won a championship last year. Boston, out of the last 5 years, they've been to the Eastern Conference Finals the most. You don't win in the East without a strong culture. And you look at this. Another thing I wanted to point out, too. Look at the East. Look at the last four teams in the East. They're all. Look at the last four teams in the East. They're Miami, Philly, Milwaukee, Boston. Those are all cultures. It's all cultures. Granted, the West is 1-4-2. It's all 1-2-3-4. So there wasn't any upsets in the first round. But it's different from the West. The West is Suns, Mavericks. 2 stars versus, I think Ayton is close to being a star. But then you got Doncic. I'm sorry, but if you take Doncic from this team, from Dallas, they're not a playoff team. That's pretty obvious. Golden State has all the stars. Memphis has John Morant. But they're building something as well. But a lot of this too, Lakers had to deal with injuries, and the Clippers had to deal with injuries. Most likely Clippers. If the Clippers were healthy, this West would look completely different. Even if Paul George didn't miss all that time, Clippers would have been 6, 7. I think Clippers would have been in the playoffs. But Clippers would have changed the trajectory of everything here. Like, it would have been a whole different team. Whole different team. But and if Zion played, this West would look completely different. But I look at the East, Miami, Philly, Boston, Milwaukee. Just look at Miami, Milwaukee, Boston. The 3 best organizations in the league. In the East. We'll say in the East. Cultures win the East. Brooklyn didn't win a single game in the playoffs because their culture is erratic. Their head coach is erratic. I love Steve Nash, but he's proven he's way out of his league with this. He's not ready to be a head coach. You can tell, and when you give him the pressure and the talent, you can tell he's way out of his head. But look at it. You got Miami, Eric Spoelstra, one of the best coaches ever. Brad Stevens running the show in Boston with Ime Udoka. And then you got Coach Budenholzer, who I think he's a little bit overrated as a head coach. But those are all cultures. And you ask me who's going to win in the East? I want to go Boston, because Boston's been the most consistent over time. They've been conference finals. I think they were a first round exit with Kyrie, but the conference finals, it's almost like they're almost scrapped. They're looking to burst out the seams with Jason Tatum. So I think this is the year where they burst out the seams, and I think they shot Golden State in the finals. Now it's still early, and I'll check in next round, but that's what I'm looking at right now. But anyway, thank you for watching this video. See you next time.